I'm Anastasia Chatzka. I'm a fashion designer, pattern maker, and sewing educator, and I'm so happy you're here sewing along with me today. So we've had a request for a slip dress, so we're going to be creating a slip dress today. So this is something that you can wear under your dress if you can't put a lining in it. So we did a video on how to add a lining to a dress, but if you can't add a lining to your dress, you can just make a slip and wear it under it. What? How novel. Slips are amazing, but they are so old school and out of fashion in a sense that you can't find them to actually wear under your dress. Now they're generally made out of softer, silkier fabrics that are lighter weight, so that way it's just like a second skin on you when you put your garment over it. You can still find these slips at old department stores, but that's really it. They are kind of gone from our everyday wardrobe. We're not layering up as much as we used to, but they're super useful. So sew up a few slips in some neutral colors and you have these go-tos to put under all of your dresses that have a sheer fabric. And sheer dresses are beautiful and they're lightweight and they're whimsical, but you don't necessarily want to be able to see through them. So let's whip up a slip. First, you're going to need the pattern. I designed a great slip dress pattern and you can get it at sewanastasia.com. And it's going to be in sizes extra small all the way up to 6X, so size for everyone. So make sure you grab that, download it either on your home printer or send it to pdfplotting.com for a large format. So I cut out my pattern and I went ahead and cut out my fabric. So you should have something like this. We're gonna have 2 back pieces. We're gonna have 4 top front bodice pieces. We're gonna have 4 pieces for the back bodice. We're gonna have a zipper, 2 bra straps, and then we're gonna have 1 panel for the front of the slip. So you might be wondering, what kind of fabric am I supposed to use for the slip? Well, make sure that you're using something that is nice and soft and silky, has a nice drape to it, so that way it's gonna lay under your dress or your garment really nicely. So this one here is made out of a stretch silk. The one I'm making today is made out of a lightweight lining fabric. I've got another one here that's made out of a knit. So yes, you can use knit, but just make sure when you're using knit that you go down a few sizes so that way it stretches over you and doesn't end up too loose. It's always a good idea to measure your pattern as well before you cut out. And then this here is a vintage slip just made out of some lightweight nylon, has lots of beautiful lace details, has the bra straps on it as well. They even put a ruffle on theirs. How fun, right? You could also add a ruffle to yours as well. The first thing I like to start sewing on a project are my darts. So we've got some darts in the bust here, so we're gonna sew up the darts first. I also wanna mention that you could also make these pleats. So if you don't wanna sew them up in the darts, you can totally just pleat the bottom of the dart legs. So the pattern's gonna have 2 darts on each bust cup to create some shape here. So you can clip into the dart legs and you can poke the point with an awl, or you can use transfer paper and draw in your dart legs to help you sew up the dart. And if you need help sewing darts, make sure you check out my video on that. So we're gonna fold our dart legs together and we are gonna start sewing at the bottom of the dart. And then we are gonna sew all the way to the tip here, following our line that we drew on. When you get to the tip, back stitch and cut. So we've got 1 dart, and now we're gonna do the other one. Back stitch and cut. So I sewed up all the darts on all the cups, so let's check them out. So you can see the inside with the darts sewn up, and then here's the outside with the darts sewn up. So now that we have all the darts sewn up, it's time to start putting this dress together. Before we move any further, you need to identify your fabric. Is it a stretchy fabric or is it a woven fabric that is not stretching at all? So if it is a stretchy fabric, you're going to need to make sure that you're using stitches that are for stretchy fabrics. It could be the lightning bolt stitch, it could be your overcast stitch, it could be a very small zigzag, or you could be serging it together. I'm using a woven fabric and I'm also going to be serging together my seams today, but if you don't have a serger, totally okay, no worries. Just make sure you pick the right stitches on your home sewing machine for the right kind of fabric that you're using. The nice thing about using the serger to sew this together is that it's going to sew the seam together and it's going to finish the edge at the same time. And by sandwiching the seam together, it's gonna make it so it's less bulky on the inside. And since we want this slip to just kind of be a second layer, it's a great seam choice to choose. Again, you can also use your home sewing machine, no need to have to use the serger. And that'll turn out just great too. The first thing we're gonna do is sew up center front at the bust cups. So we're gonna take the bust cups and we're gonna place them right sides together, and we are just gonna sew up center front here. Again, I'm using the serger, and your seam allowance on this pattern is 3/8 of an inch. And we're gonna do that to both sets. So you can see we have the inside here sewn together with the serger, and then we have the outside here, which is just a really nice finished seam. Next, we're gonna sew the back panels to the side seam. So we wanna make sure we're doing is taking the side that's angled out more and placing it to the side seam of the front. Because if we look at this, the back, center back of the back bodice here is straight, and then the side is out at an angle. And the side that's smaller is your underbust, and the side that is bigger here is the top of your bust. So make sure you're laying this out right, because you very much so could lay this accidentally the wrong way. So just make sure that it is creating a shape like this. Now we want to place these right sides together and sew up this seam. And we're going to do this to all 4 side seams. So now we have both of our bodices sewn together, one for the outside and one for the lining. Now we're gonna put together the bottom of the skirt for the dress, so we're gonna sew together the side seams first. So we're gonna take our front skirt and we're gonna take our back skirt and we're gonna line up our side seams and we're gonna sew up this side with the serger. Make sure you have the straight center back at center back. And we are gonna do this to both sides. And there we go. Now both of our side seams are done. Now we have our side seams finished and they are looking great. Next, I'm gonna serge the hem just to finish it so it's not fraying while I'm working with it. And now our hem is finished. Now it's time to join the bodice to the skirt, and I'm going to do this on the serger, but remember you can totally do this on the sewing machine. If you're enjoying making a slip dress so far, make sure you subscribe to Sew Anastasia and hit the notification bell so you know when all the new videos come out. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for watching today. Now let's get back to making that slip dress. So now what we need to do is sew these 2 pieces together. So we're gonna take the bodice, flip it to the right side of the skirt, and we need to line everything up. So we're gonna line up our side seams, and this is curved, so we're gonna work this all the way up to the point, goes down the point, line up your side seam. It's a great idea to use clips on your serger or pins in your home sewing machine to put this together, because these are some tricky points and curves. You get to the point, make sure you fold your fabric back. I'm gonna come to the point, make sure my needles are in. I'm gonna lift up my foot, very carefully turn with the serger. Also, always make sure your dart underlay is facing center front. And we're done. Let's take a look at it. So now you can see we have our bodice attached to our skirt, and look at how nice our side seams here lined up. Next, we're gonna serge center back so it has a nice clean finish for inserting our zipper. And we're gonna serge on both sides of the center back. And we're done serging center back. Now that center back is nice and finished, I am ready to put in the zipper. So I'm gonna set up the regular sewing machine and put in that zipper. Also, if you're using a knit fabric, just sew up center back, or you could have cut it on fold earlier, just making sure you get rid of that seam allowance. So if you're using a knit, this next step for you, you don't need it. So I'm gonna be putting in an invisible zipper, but remember, you can put in a regular zipper, or if you're using knit fabric, no zipper at all. If you need help putting in a zipper, make sure you check out my videos on those. I'll be using a contrasting zipper so that way it's nice and easy for you to see while I demo it. So I'm gonna put in the zipper. Again, if you need help with this, make sure you check out my video on it, or you can book a private lesson with me. And we're done with the zipper. Our zipper's in and it looks great. It is nice and invisible, and our seam right here at the underbust for the back matches beautifully. We're getting so close to done. It is looking like a dress. We just have a few finishing details. Now what we're gonna do is take our bust lining, and we are gonna make sure that we have our right sides together, and we are gonna pin all the way around our neckline. So I'm gonna pin these 2 layers together, and then I'm gonna sew this together on the regular sewing machine. So you're just gonna work your way all the way around the neckline. You might be wondering, what about our straps? I'm gonna be putting in my straps after, since they're pretty thick. They're actually a bra strap. If you had a really thin spaghetti strap, you could also insert that in between the facing and your self fabric right now. Make sure everything's lining up. You want all of your seams to line up, all your points to line up, all your curves to line up. Okay, we have got this all pinned up and it's looking great. So now what we're gonna do is do a 3/8 inch of a seam and just sew all the way around, sewing these 2 layers together. Don't forget the back stitch at the beginning and just work your way all the way around your neckline. Back stitch and cut. So now we have the neckline finished, and we have a little extra lining in the bust, so you can see how nice that looks from the inside and the outside. But notice how all the lining fabric wants to pop out to the front of your garment. How do we prevent it from doing that? So if you just iron it, it eventually is gonna pop out. So what we're gonna do, it's called an understitch. So we are gonna stitch the seam allowance to the lining. So we're gonna open up the 2 bodice layers, and because you can see through this fabric, you can see the seam allowance here. And so what we're gonna do is push the seam allowance towards the lining, towards the inside of the garment, and we're gonna do a little edge stitch, stitching down on top of the lining facing piece and on top of the seam allowance. So now we're gonna stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the seam, working our way all the way around the neckline. You're probably wondering, what do I do when I get to those points of the bodice? We'll keep watching and I'm gonna show you. So you're only gonna be able to sew up so far into the point. You're gonna have to stop about 1 inch away, do a couple back stitches and cut. And now we're gonna come down 1 inch on the other side of the point. Make sure your seam allowance is flipped the right way. And now we're gonna start again. So back stitch, and then just keep continuing all the way around the neck. Now we've got the point of the bodice coming up. When you get to this point, just make sure you keep it straight. Also, I've already clipped into my point. If you haven't clipped into your point, make sure you do that so it lays nice and flat. So we're at the other point, so we're 1 inch away from it. We're gonna back stitch and cut. So we're gonna come down about 1 inch on the other side of the point. Make sure that seam allowance is towards the inside of the garment. Make sure everything's nice and flat in here. Come all the way to the end, back stitch and cut. So you can see how nice our understitch looks, and it's really keeping that lining to the inside of the garment. Also, notice how when I was stitching it, I didn't do the very point of the bodice here. So now what we need to do is finish the bodice lining by the zipper here. So what we're gonna do is take it and fold it back at the seam. And then we're gonna put our zipper foot on, and then we're just gonna sew right on the zipper tape here. And that's gonna give us a nice clean finish on the inside of the dress. So I've got my zipper foot on, I've got my needle position moved over, and now I'm going to stitch down the lining. Back stitch and cut. So after you've sewn it up, you can see how nice it looks on the inside of the garment. Now that we have the back zipper finished, it looks beautiful with the lining right next to it. Next, we need to secure the lining down because it's loose right now. So we're gonna flip the dress right side out, and we're going to stitch in the ditch, which means we're gonna stitch in the seam right here. And then when we do that, it's gonna catch the lining layer here. If you'd like an in-depth explanation on stitch in the ditch, make sure you check out my video on it. So I've got my stitch in the ditch foot on. You don't have to have this foot, you can just use your regular foot. I'm gonna make sure that I'm stitching right here in the seam so that way it looks invisible. You are going to back stitch and come all the way down the underbust here. It's really important to make sure everything is nice and flat and lined up. I always like to engage my needle down button so that way when I stop, my needle is going to be in the fabric and I'm not going to pull anything off whack. When we get to the end, back stitch and cut. So the lining is nice and attached and it is not going anywhere. And now it's time to attach the straps. So now we're going to attach the straps. So I have some bra straps here and I'm going to place the side that does not have the little ring in the front. So we're gonna place it behind the little point. And now what we're gonna do is go over to the sewing machine and sew this up. So let's flip it over. So you can see I'm placing it about a 1/2 inch below the point. So I'm gonna go ahead and sew this in a little triangle, mimicking the shape at the point here. And for the back, I'm gonna place the little part with the hoop, with the elastic, a 1/2 inch behind the neckline here. And then for this one, I'm just gonna sew over it with a straight stitch. Now I'm gonna sew the fronts and the backs of those straps on, and then we're gonna be done and we get to take a look at it. Don't forget to back stitch at the beginning here. Sometimes these elastic straps can move around on you. So really make sure you're holding them in place. Back stitch and cut, and now we're done. We finished the cute slip dress, so let's take a look at it. So just to go over all of our details, we have our bodice with our darts in it to create shape for our bust. We have a really nice shaped style line here. We have our beautiful bra straps, and if we turn it over, we have our invisible zipper. We have our bra straps in the back, and then if we unzip it, we have got our lining here for the top. So I was gonna try it on, but since it's like a second skin, it's a little see-through. So we are not gonna show it on, but I still wanna show it to you. It is looking great, I love it. This is perfect to go under a dress that you already have that's just a little bit too sheer, or you could make this out of thicker fabric and actually wear it as a dress. Slip dresses are a thing. So if you want to sew up this super cute slip dress, make sure you download the pattern at sewanastasia.com. And don't forget, it's in sizes extra small through 6X, so we got a size for everyone. And I would love to see your makes, so make sure you tag me in them so that way I can repost them and share with everyone else your slip dress creations. If you have any questions about this video, make sure you leave it down below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, give it some applause, and leave a comment down below. And if you're not already a subscriber to Sew Anastasia, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when all the new videos come out. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for watching. Also, make sure you follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and TikTok, and all those other social media websites. That way we can stay connected and creative together. And don't forget, if you need help with this project or any sewing project that you're working on, you can take sewing classes with me in person or virtually. So check those out at sewinganastasia.com. We also now have Sew Anastasia merch, so you can check that out down below as well. All those little shirt icons down there. That's Sew Anastasia merch. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.